And action. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June meeting of the Beavercreek Board of Zoning Appeals. Ms. Gillow, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Botla?
Present.
Mr. Clunin?
Present.
Mr. Essman?
Present.
Mr. Rust?
Present.
Mr. Archibald?
Here. Okay. Since everybody's here, do we have any additions or subtractions or adjustments to the agenda? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I move the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and by voice vote, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Oh, we have a reorganization. Let me see if I have my cheat sheet. So basically, we have to vote on who's going to be the chair and who's going to be the vice chair of the board. Correct? Okay. I'd like to open nominations for chair first. Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir.
I move the motion to.
Got to turn your mic on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I move the motion for Dan Archibald to be chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Okay, we have a motion to close nominations. Do we hear a second?
A second.
Okay. That said, all in favor of me remaining as chair, say aye. Or do we have to call?
Aye.
Do we have to call the vote? No. Okay, voice vote. Okay. All right. I heard a lot of ayes. Any opposition? Okay. So be it. Okay, so let's open the nominations for vice chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Botla.
I move for Mr. Botla to be vice chair.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Mr. Botla to remain as vice chair. Do we have any other nominees? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close nominations. I'm sorry. I'll take a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's closed. The nominees are closed. And all in favor of Mr. Botla remaining as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Reorganization, I believe, is complete. Okay.
That's simple.
Thanks, Ms. Gillow, for being in my ear. We have two sets of minutes that we need to vote on for approval. First one is from January 11th of 2023. Do we have any corrections, additions, deletions to those minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All right, by voice vote, all in favor of accepting the minutes from January 11th as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. All right, same process for our working session meeting on May 10th. Everybody was here for that except for Mr. Clunin. So any additions, subtractions, adjustments to those minutes?
Only one I have, that as currently we have 8 criteria, and what we heard last time was the 7 criteria. So is it kind of a change from 8 to 7? That's being proposed? You know.
My understanding is that that's the proposal to go into the new zoning code.
Okay,
Right.
regardless, yeah, I move the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as written.
A second.
And a second. by voice vote. All in favor of accepting the working session meeting minutes from May 10th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes for May 10th working session are approved. Okay, moving right along. Our first case is V23-3, Marilyn Raeth of 1660 North Central Drive. Ms. Gillall, you're on.
This is case number V23-3 on an application filed by Marilyn Raeth, 1660 North Central Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45432, requesting a variance from Chapter 158.104E of the City of Beavercreek zoning code, requesting permission to replace an existing accessory structure, shed, that exceeds the maximum square footage allowed for the parcel. The property is located on the east side of North Central Drive, 2 lots south of the intersection of North Central Drive and Highmont Street, further described as Book 2, page 11, parcel 96 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Okay. Do we have somebody here from the applicant? Or do you go first, Matt? No, the applicant goes first, right? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll get the staff report first, and then we'll call you back up. Sorry. I'm a little discombobulated this evening. Mr. Funk, please join us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The case we have before us is variance case. Variance case B23-3. The applicant is requesting to basically keep a existing shed at a property that she owns on North Central Drive. Basically, it's going to be this little shed right here. It's 192 square feet. Let me start over here. There's our drive-by view of the house.
Thank you.
So that's the front of the house. That's an existing detached garage. The shed is behind the garage, and then to the left and the rear, you can see another detached structure. There's 3 in total on the property.
Kind of, we are moving.
Yeah.
Okay, so behind, what we see behind the garage, that is the shed?
Yeah,
Okay.
the white structure behind the garage is the shed.
Okay.
So basically, it's a 192 square foot detached shed that's located behind the garage. It was built basically prior to Beavercreek incorporating. And basically, in our synopsis of the review of the variance, basically the house is less than 1,200 square feet. So the zoning code allows, we made a revision some years ago to allow anyone that has less than 1,200 square foot footprint of their house to have at least 600 square foot in accessory structure, rather, because most places it's 50%. And so, but you get less than 1,200 square feet. BZA in the past had some concerns, and we had some discussions about, hey, let everybody at least have a garage, right? So we made a minimum of 600 square foot. So since this house is less than 1,200 square foot, our maximum of accessory structures is not 50%, which would be less than 600 feet, but actually granting 600 square foot in accessory structure. In this situation, basically there's 3 accessory structures. One of them is 432 square feet, the other is 360, and then we have the one that we're discussing tonight, the 192 square foot detached shed. So the applicant basically is already exceeding, with the 3 structures, exceeds the allowable square footage of accessory structures by 384 square feet, or 64% over what she's already allowed in accessory structures. Basically, in reviewing the application, basically, does there exist a condition, to the property that is creating a practical difficulty? Staff found there's not. There's nothing unique to this property as opposed to any other property in the neighborhood or anywhere around that would create a practical difficulty that would keep the applicant from complying with the code. She has the ability to basically she already has, even with the elimination of this shed, exceeds the amount of accessory structure that she's allowed to have. Is it the minimum variance possible, or are there other alternatives? Obviously, the square footage, again, already exceeds the allowable square footage. Obviously, she's allowed to maintain the structures that she has, because they're existing. So as long as she maintains those structures, obviously we're not going to make anybody tear anything down. They're allowed to maintain them, but when it comes to removing a structure and replacing it, that's where the code comes into play, because part of the whole purpose of a zoning permit is to try to bring properties into conformance with the zoning code. And so, and that's why a permit was applied for and denied, because the square footage was already exceeded for that particular parcel. Like I said, the applicant with the if this shed is eliminated, the applicant would still exceed the allowable square footage by 192 square feet. The next criteria is would the granting of the variance be in harmony with the general spirit, intent, and purpose of the zoning code? Again, staff feels that it would not be, because again, our max generally for accessory structures is roughly 50%, and the applicant's case, with a primary structure being less than 1,200 square feet, the code is actually granting more than that 50%. And to, grant the variance to allow, basically almost 400 square foot in accessory structure above what's allowed, would not be in harmony with the code. The next three, actually, staff agrees with. There's nothing, granting of the variance would not be injurious to surrounding properties or the general neighborhood. There would not be a deleterious change to the character of the community. And the granting of the variance would not infringe upon the rights and quiet enjoyment of the surrounding properties and all that. The next criteria, would the granting of the variance be for a compelling reason and not simply because the applicant's plans conflict with the zoning code requirements when reasonable alternatives are available? Staff does not feel like this criteria is met because it really is, there's not a compelling reason other than the applicant wants to be able to replace the shed that's basically above what is allowed to be there. And then lastly, is the granting of the variance solely for economic benefit of the applicant? The applicant, lives at a separate address. This is like an investment property or something, and so the elimination, staff doesn't feel it complies because there's really no real benefit to the applicant, in our opinion, to maintain the shed, other than whatever economic benefit might be there for storage or additional rent or whatever. So that's what I've got.
Okay, thank you.
So staff basically recommends denial of the variance request.
Okay, thank you. The applicant, are you here for the applicant?
Yes.
So before you start, up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a card to read and insert your name and things.
Oh, okay. My name is Marilyn Raeth, and I live at 2435 Flyway Court. I affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge. Okay, I do not agree with this evaluation for a number of reasons.
Okay.
Number one, the graph of the house, the square footage, isn't even correct. There's an additional 100 square feet that isn't even shown on the graph. Number two, I'm trying to maintain the property. This shed was built in 1924. I submitted pictures for you to look at.
Yep.
You can see it's in very bad shape.
Right.
I just want to replace it with a decent structure. And three, I feel discriminated against because if the garage was attached to the house, I would not need a variance. So just because my garage happens to be detached and the other neighbors, maybe theirs are attached, I shouldn't be discriminated against. because if the garage was attached to the house, I'd be well within the square footage.
Okay. What else you got? Anything?
Well, and the other thing is, the house is small, and that storage space is valuable in every way, to the tenant, to the existing property, and I also feel it should be granted because it will be an improvement in the neighborhood. Instead of having this crummy old shed there, it'll be a decent structure.
Okay.
And just because if my garage was attached to the house, I wouldn't even be here. So I don't feel that is really fair.
Okay.
I think that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have questions for you, and we'll call
Okay.
you back up.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other input from the public for this case? Hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this case, V23-3, and open it up for my illustrious colleagues. So let's start with Mr. Clunin.
Thank you. Mr. Funk, I might have a question or two for you, if you don't mind. Perhaps with some backup from the city attorney on this as well. I assume that this shed is a non-conforming use right now, which is why it's been allowed to stay there.
Yes.
And if I recall correctly, the goal of a non-conforming use is to sort of let it die over time and not to replace or put substantial repairs to the structure so that it can cease to exist. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. The goal, long-term goal is to bring properties into conformance, not to maintain nonconformities.
Okay. Do you know whether this shed in particular, and this might be a question for the applicant then, but whether it is so destroyed and rotten that it could be fixed, and if so, if that would keep it within the code, or are we talking about this thing has to come down at this point?
Based upon the pictures that the applicant submitted, I mean, I obviously didn't do an assessment of the structure, but based upon the pictures that the applicant provided, it did look like it was in pretty rough shape. And unfortunately for the applicant, it's the years of neglect to the structure that's actually brought her to this place. But I can't really speak to, she's having it replaced for a reason, so I would expect that it's probably because that's what, it's in a state that it needs to be removed or replaced.
Okay, I think that's all I have. I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
For now, at least.
You done? You reserve the right for seconds? Okay, let's jump on over to Mr. Rust.
Yeah, question for the applicant. Have you, kind of as Mr. Clunin said, has there been any exploration of renovating the structure or anything like that to this point, or is it just, it
Oh,
needs
the
to be
microphone,
replaced at
okay.
this point?
If you looked at the pictures that I submitted, I think you would not be thinking of renovation.
Gotcha.
The wood is rotted. The windows are practically falling out.
So,
But I really feel, because if my garage was attached to the house, I wouldn't even be here. So I don't think that's right.
so it's your assessment that this structure's unusable in its current condition?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And it will be an improvement to the neighborhood
Gotcha. Thank you.
and justifiable. It even said if I ran a breezeway from the back door to the garage, I wouldn't need a variance, as long as it wasn't greater than 12 feet. Well, that's not possible. Anyway.
Thank
okay.
you.
That's all? Okay. Mr. Asper.
Thank you. For the applicant, just to be clear, you're going to remove the shed
Yes.
and then replace it with something of similar size? That's what you propose?
Yes.
On the same footprint?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But you are removing the shed.
And replacing it with a new one, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Butler.
I understand you are not living there, right? It's a rental property?
And my question to Mr. Funk will be that if she just repairs, that doesn't need a permit? I mean,
Right. I mean, it's a non-conforming structure as it is. And so obviously that even the two remaining structures that she has, the total of accessory structure square footage, those structures are non-conforming. So she's allowed to maintain what she has non-conforming. But the point at which she goes to, replace those structures, we want conformity, not non-conformity. So that's where the property, we want, obviously it wouldn't be 100% conforming because we still have two structures that exceed the allowable square footage, but the property is more conforming after the removal of the shed than it was before. And so, and that's, the purpose, we couldn't approve a zoning permit because, it exceeds the square footage. So, the applicant, just to address the applicant's thing about, whether or not if the detached garage was attached, I understand what she's saying, but that could be applied. I mean, how many large structures have we had in the city that said, if people came and just said, well, if I could have the amount of square footage for my accessory structures to build more accessory structures, that's kind of a never-ending cycle there. The reality is it is a detached garage and counts towards the detached accessory structure total, so.
yeah. My other question would be, since this is falling apart, the siding, the picture she provided, I can see that. But if she does not remove from there, as it is, all that, foundation, footing, that area, slab, and just repairs it, siding or roof, whatever needed, does she need a permit still?
No, if she's just making simple repairs to the structure, she would not need a permit.
Okay, so,
But the applicant's testimony sounds like it's become in such a state of disrepair due to lack of maintenance that it does need to be replaced, according to the applicant.
so other question I have applicant,
Okay.
for applicant. So, your intention is to replace, and you're saying that it will increase the value of the property, because right now it's kind of unsightly, it doesn't
Well,
look good.
probably, improve the neighborhood, and I don't consider a garage an accessory structure.
It is.
Yeah,
It is by the code.
Yeah, it's access, okay.
But, and again, if you go by the code, if my garage is attached to the house, I wouldn't even have to be here.
Okay.
So
That's
I
all-
think that's
yeah.
sort of discrimination.
That's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
That's it?
That's all. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Funk. So the non-conforming structures that are on this property can remain,
Yes.
right? If there's going to be a replacement, then it has to be brought into conformity,
Correct.
or at least that structure has to be brought into
Right, correct.
conformity. So if I'm not mistaken, the applicant's choices are either, one, remove the structure, or fix it as it is, right? I mean, they do repairs to it without removing it and replacing it.
Right.
Okay. Am I also correct in understanding that if that structure were damaged by more than 60% through storms or fire or vandalism or something like that, that she would be able to replace it then?
Yeah, I mean, if it was, if it was a natural disaster or something, there's been exceptions, in the code in the past that yes.
Okay. I thought I read that. This had me diving into the
Right.
code today.
Sure.
So,
Yep. But, neglect over a long period of time would not qualify for that.
sure,
so.
sure. But, if we had storm tonight and it got struck by lightning and it caught on fire, she would technically be able to replace it. according to the code.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's in nature, nature calamity.
You look like you want to weigh in.
I would disagree with that because it's already been in such a deteriorated state that
Right.
you're destroying 100% of 10% of a structure. I mean, this is if you have a good structure that's suddenly destroyed by a disaster, that's when that
I'm just
applies.
calling out what the code says, right? There's no qualifications in there for good structures or bad structures. But thank you for your legal input. Okay, Ms. Raeth, can you come back up again, please? Just for clarification purposes, any structure that is on a property that's not attached to the primary structure is considered an accessory structure, right? That's what the code says. It's what we go by, and I understand that you feel discriminated against because your garage isn't attached to your house, but that's just the way the code is written, right? And we're not discriminating against you. We're discriminating against everyone who has a detached garage.
Well, I am not, if I replace it, I'm not changing the footprint one bit, and I'm improving the city. So I don't understand what the problem is.
Well, because the fact that you are replacing it, and you're replacing it with a new non-conforming structure, which
Which is going to have the exact same footprint as the old structure that's sitting there right now.
I understand. But, again, back to what we're trying to accomplish with the zoning code is to bring things into conformity. If you were to replace it, then we wouldn't be, we would be continuing that non-conformity with a new structure. And, right, so, right now, like I was telling Mr. Funk, I think that your options are either one, keep it and repair it, or take it down. So, but
So what is your definition of repairing it? My definition of repairing it is replacing it.
No, if I have a minute, maintenance is a recurring maintenance, that we do to house and, siding, appliances. But replacement entirely different, because you didn't like the way it is and you want to have different material. That would be replacement, it's a different from maintenance or even repair. Replacement is totally different from maintenance or repair. In your case, if you want to keep as it is, you can maintain it, kind of have a same shape, just the way it was before, but remove that damaged siding and put the new one. That would be a kind of maintenance or repair, but not a replacement. Replacement would be entirely different.
Well, I think you're in a gray zone, because if you look at the pictures I submitted, and you talk about repairing it, have you really looked at the pictures?
have, it'll be difficult.
And
So-
what would be the difference between repairing it and replacing it? If it was repaired properly, it'd be about the same thing as replacing it.
Mr. Funk, you want to weigh in on that question, or are you just saying it up? Okay. So repairing it, the basic structure, the skeleton of the building stays, right? I mean, the things that the siding attaches to, that the windows attached to, is basically it stays in place, right? And
So if I keep the skeleton, I can repair the rest?
I would say yes.
As long as you don't, as long as she doesn't replace more than 60% of the structure. That would be a replacement.
I-
Wow.
Can you show me that in the code? Because I did not come across that in the code.
Well, I think we're deviating a little bit from what our purpose here is. So,
Well, we're trying to answer a question. I mean, if she said if she can repair it, she can keep it, right?
And just to back up, Mr. Funk, I think that conversation can be had with staff on that, but once the only issue before us is demolition and replacement, we should just stick to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Raeth. I think we're going to open it up for seconds. None? Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to vote on approval or disapproval of the variance request V 23-3.
I move the motion to disapprove that variance the applicant has requested. And that variance is totally replacing with a new material, repair, maintenance with exception. So basically, the way she has requested the replacing, that my motion will be disapproved.
Okay. We have a motion to disapprove the variance request. Do I hear a second?
A second.
I have a second. Ms. Gillo, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clunin,
I vote to disapprove.
Mr. Essman,
I vote to disapprove.
Mr. Rust,
Disapprove.
Mr. Botla,
Disapprove.
Mr. Archibald.
Disapprove. So your variance request has been disapproved, and I think you can continue further work with staff to find out what other options you might have, but you can't just replace that shed.
So if not more than 60% of the structure is replaced, it's considered a repair, correct? Correct?
That, yeah.
Yeah.
If I say something, when you say 60%, that's basically saying it's not worth putting in money because you already kind of a old structure and 60% destroyed, then they recommend replacing altogether. That's more beneficial, have longer life.
Okay, let's move on to the next case. V 23-4, Hector Gonzalez, 1024 Grange Hall Road. Ms. Gillall, you're on again.
This is case number V 23-4 on an application filed by Hector Gonzalez, 1024 Grange Hall Road, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45430, requesting a variance from Chapter 158.031 F1 of the City of Beavercreek zoning code, requesting permission to construct a single-family residence that would encroach into the 40-foot required front yard setback and the 50-foot required rear yard setback in an R1A district. The property is located on the east side of Grange Hall Road, 3 lots north of the intersection of Grange Hall Road and Willow Crest Road, further described as Book 2, page 15, parcel 234 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Okay. And I understand we have some written input?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I must recuse myself from this case.
Okay. You are dismissed. We'll call you back. Got it. Okay. Mr. Funk, your next staff report, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have is a variance request for for basically encroachments into the front and rear yard setbacks at 1024 Grange Hall Road, basically Lot 2. Basically, that's kind of a rough representation of the lot that we're discussing tonight. And there's our drive-by. Basically, right now, it's a vacant lot, so it's the vacant lot that you see there.
And you're on Grange Hall Road?
I'm on Grange Hall Road heading south, yes. So basically, the applicant is requesting a variance to encroach into the front and rear yard setbacks. Basically, this is an image that basically shows what the lot looks like with the setbacks applied. So there's a 40-foot front yard setback, a 50-foot rear yard setback, and then the sides. So we're basically, the sides are not an issue, we're talking about front and rear. So basically, the depth of the lot is just over 100 feet. So if you applied the 40-foot and the 50-foot setbacks, basically the applicant could build a 10-foot deep house, which, you know, is not very practical for most people, I guess. So it could be 10 feet deep and, you know, 100 feet wide, 150 feet wide, I guess. But and this is the applicant's proposed house. The applicant did make some modifications to the house to try to reduce the amount of setback. One of the things they did was they adjusted where the garage was going to be to move it off the road more. So they're requesting a 5-foot encroachment in the front yard setback, and then basically a 23 into the rear. We were comfortable with that 5-foot in the front just because we didn't want the house to be too far into the road in case there is improvements, which there probably may be in some time in the future of Grange Hall Road, and it would maintain consistency and setback along Grange Hall Road. The house to the north is roughly 35 feet back, so it's only 5 feet in, so and it gives a little more room to the back, so it's not pushed as far back onto the lot. And like I said, the applicant did move where the garage was located to reduce that encroachment into the front as well. So
Let me
that's,
interrupt you for just a second. Do you have that house to the north in the previous picture?
I think I do have a picture. So here's the house. This is the house to the north right here. And then this is the house. This house to the south is at 40 feet, I think roughly 40 feet. So it's, you know, it's going to be somewhat even with this house. So like I said, it's just a 5-foot encroachment there into the front yard. So the majority of the encroachment is the rear yard. So basically, when looking at when performing our analysis, basically the staff did believe that there was conditions unique to this lot that are creating a practical difficulty to the applicant, you know, conforming with a strict application of the code. Because obviously, you know, like I said, a 10-foot deep house is not very practical. So it's the narrowness of the lot that is creating the issue here. So we felt he met that. Criteria number 2, the minimum variance possible, other alternatives. Like I said, the applicant did try to modify the house a little bit to, you know, reduce the encroachment into the front yard setback or overall setbacks. But like I said, regardless, you know, a variance is going to be required to build any kind of a house there. Basically, the granting of the variance would be in harmony with the general spirit and intent of the code. I will back up to this slide here. You'll see, you'll see basically these lots on Rexford, you know, the depth of these lots compared to these two houses here. You know, if that line was kind of extended up, you know, those lots are uniquely deep compared to these other lots here on Rexford, you know, and at the same time, these two, you know, it's, you know, these two lots are shallow compared to these two. So, but in reality, with the house even encroaching into the setback, the distance between this house and the new house is going to be pretty consistent between the distance between this house and these other. So, you know, yes, it's going to encroach, but the overall, the harmony, the intent is to provide that open space, you know, and with those lots being extra deep, you know, helps to provide that additional open, you know, maintain that open space that would be otherwise afforded to the applicant had their lot been deeper. So we felt, you know, they met this criteria. You know, we don't think that the variance, granting the variance would be injurious to the surrounding properties, the neighborhood. We don't feel like it would be a deleterious change to the character of the community. We don't feel like it would be infringing upon the rights and requirement of the majority of the neighbors or endanger public safety or create a nuisance. We do believe it is for a compelling reason, because it's not reasonable for the applicant to build a 10-foot deep house, and we do not believe that it's for the solely for the economic benefit of the applicant. So in our opinion, you know, we do feel that the applicant meets the criteria of the variance.
Okay, thank you. Can we hear from the applicant or a representative of the applicant?
Not here.
Okay. Do we have anybody else to speak at the public hearing part of this variance request? Okay, please come up to the microphone and read that card up in the upper left-hand corner of the podium.
I, Victoria Zumber, live at 3981 Rexford Drive. Affirm that the testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, before you begin, can you put up the map again? Okay.
So my house is going to be directly behind the house, so.
Your house in on Rexford?
Yes.
Okay.
That one, yes.
All right, great, thank you.
So, when we first bought that house, we were told that there is no way that anyone could build on that house because of the zoning, which is one of the reasons why we bought that house, because we didn't want anything behind us. We liked the fact that there was nothing behind us. We had the open fields. We liked sitting out there with the nature, and when we heard the park was coming in, we were excited. We have more nature. Then we get this letter saying that he's going to build a house. And he can't keep the house he's got. He's got his equipment from his business strewn all over his parking or his driveway. It's a mess. He's going to have this whole yard a disaster. And I don't want to look at that. And it's not fair that I have to do that. I don't want to listen to construction going on in this mess. I don't want to look at him in my backyard because he's chose to buy this house and build a bigger house because that's what he wants to do. It's not fair. Why do we have rules if you don't have to follow them? Can you answer that?
Well, this is why we have variance requests,
Right,
to
but
deviate from those rules.
obviously he's going to get it. Can you answer that?
Not yet, I can't.
Well, yeah, but it's not fair.
Okay.
You know,
Does he live in this plat?
does who?
The-
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez? Okay.
Yeah, he lives in, and that's another question. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he lives there, yes.
Okay.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is an old schoolhouse, correct? Is it on the registry? Is he gonna tear it down when he builds his new house? That's another question.
And ma'am, for a variance request, those are all outside things that we could
Yeah.
consider for this. It's only that particular piece of property.
Well, that's something that needs to be considered. You know, I don't think, I'm questioning the distance that he's gonna have for a front yard. I'm sorry, but, I go past that every day. I don't think his front yard is gonna be as big as you say it is. I know John's front yard is bigger than what you're saying it is. So I'm questioning a lot of things. It's, I'm really sad. I'm really sad because I bought this house to be my forever home. And now you're gonna have a hard time because I'm looking to sell now. You know, I came back to Beavercreek. I grew up in Beavercreek. I'm not gonna live in Beavercreek anymore if it's gonna be this way. I mean, just because someone's got some money and they can come in and say, let me, here, I want to build a house in this little tiny space. And I'm sure it's going to be a big house. I won't have a view. All my view of that field and the deer and the wildlife, I won't be able to watch anymore because I'm going to have to look at his house and his family that he's going to tear up like he's torn up this schoolhouse. It's not fair. And I'm very sad. And I just think it's sad. It's really sad that the city has gone and ruined a good town like this with your zoning appeals and letting things happen the way they did. I felt sorry for that poor lady. You know, all she wants to do is replace her thing. And I get it. But damn it, this is sad. You buy a house, you work your butt off your entire life, and you just want to retire and look at your field across the street that's going to be a park. You know, you're going to have a dog park. You can walk your dogs across the street. How many times have we said that? And you can't do it now because you've got to walk across the street in somebody's yard that won't let you do it now because he's going to be spiteful. It's just sad. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Sir, you have something you want to present?
I probably don't have much to add to her. She covered all the bases.
Okay.
But, hi, John A. Gregory, 1010 Grange Hall Road. I live just to the south of the property in question. I affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth and to the best of my knowledge. When we consider, the sideline issues here, I guess from a little research this afternoon, that's scheduled to be a two-story property. There's an old cliche, this wouldn't be appropriate here, but you're putting a whole lot of property on a very small space. Stacking it up. Now, the one issue that I would have, the most common rumor for those of us that live on Grange Hall Road, and now that the park is proposed, is widening Grange Hall Road. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it were to be on the park side? But we know that's not going to happen. So when that happens and we lose, say, 12 feet of road frontage, what's that going to do to this new house? Their front porch is going to be on the street. I can see your point of view, but at the same token, I really don't think you're seeing ours for the neighborhood. I'm disappointed in my neighbors' turnout here, but some people just don't care. I don't have much else to say after that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Anybody else to talk about this case? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for my fellow board members to discuss. And
Mr. Archibald, I have two
Oh,
written
I'm
letters. Can
sorry.
I put in the record?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Gilhoff, for
Sure.
keeping me on a straight and narrow.
No problem. We did receive a letter from Victoria Zember, who did speak tonight at 3981 Rexford Road, obviously requesting denial of the case after you heard her testimony tonight. And then also, I did receive another email from Bob Miller of 3977 Rexford Road, who was also in opposition of the case. Board members also received copies of both emails.
Right? Okay. And do you know where 3977 is?
The bigger one? You mean this one?
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Gill. Appreciate it. Let's start with Mr. Essman. I know you've got something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For staff, is the lot in question a conforming lot to the zoning district?
No, and that, which is part of the issue, is the lot is not conforming. It would typically be about 20,000 square feet. This lot is, I think, just over 17,000 square feet, almost 18,000 square feet. So it is a non-conforming lot, which is part of the reason for the variance request, because it is unique in the, creating a practical difficulty for the applicant to build a house there. So it is, a little bit smaller than what would typically be found in that neighborhood, yes.
Thank you. My second question is, along Grange Hall Road, are those other lots along Grange Hall conforming lots as well to the zoning district?
The majority of them, most likely, there aren't a lot of houses there, but in that stretch, I know that the house to the north, this one here, I don't think is conforming. I think it's more closely to that 35-foot.
Right.
To address the concerns earlier about the road widening, I did talk to the city engineer, and any widening, since the city owns the park land to the south, any widening would be to the park and not to, the east side of those lots. Assuming that it was even additional right-of-way that needed to be acquired, the city engineer said they would come from the park side of the city side of things, not from the housing side of things. So, and like I said, the front yard encroachment is 5 feet, and it's minimal comparatively.
Great, thank you very much.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Rust?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Mr. Bala?
My question is, Mr. Funk, when Mr. Gonzalez bought this land, what was his intention of buying the land? To build a house in the future, or
I
just
really
kind of?
can't speak to what his intentions were when he purchased the property. I'm not sure.
Okay. And now other question is that the use of this land, I mean, it has to be utilized for some constructive purpose. You can't leave the land as it is, because the people living behind, they are not able to enjoy the nature or deer or whatever, That's not the reason not to build anything on it,
Right.
And that's not the reason even because the equipment noise or something temporarily would obstruct them. That's also not the reason.
Right. Correct.
And, just on the side question, on your, that, your, this criteria that you have, the number one criteria, the staff analysis, and where you put the satisfied, there's a minor correction. If you look at, it says the parcel has a depth of only 100 feet. Then it says when applying the required 50 feet front, it should be 40 feet, not 50.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Some clerical error. And then same thing, rear should be 50, not 40.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So, that, and then I see there are two people living behind, and they have a lot of, backyard. Yeah. So that is not even, that's not the reason of rejecting this, variance. And 5 feet or, 27 feet, and again, the land is precious and need to be utilized. So, okay, that's my, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You done? Okay. So come on back up. Thanks, Matt. So on your criteria, based on what we've heard from the public input today and what we received in written, would you say that changing number 4, number 5 should be unsatisfied, not satisfied?
No, because, because it would not be detrimental to public welfare, nor would it be a deleterious change in the character of the community. There's already single-family homes there, so I don't see where it would be a deleterious change. And then, you know, it would not be, there's, you know, granted the applicant, or the testimony that was provided from the people in opposition obviously may not have the view that they had once had or something like that, but that's not injurious to those properties. And it certainly would not be detrimental to public welfare.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. Yes, please.
Well, actually, it was to him.
Oh. You have to step up to the mic.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Would you be as willing to have this go on if this was your backyard?
Okay.
Please, could you answer that?
No, I'm not going to let him answer that.
Oh, sure you wouldn't. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay, so, any other questions, seconds? Okay,
Your Honor, I'd like to just make one comment.
sure.
So this board is bound by a Supreme Court's decision from 1986 that requires them to look at certain factors. The statute, they're required under the ordinance to look at certain factors, and their decision has to be based upon those certain factors, and they're limited in their review of this to those factors. And I just wanted to point out that's the reason why this board is focusing on those factors, because they're legally required to do that. And it's not the city of Beavercreek who decided that, it's the Supreme Court of Ohio,
Right.
Which was following precedent from all over the country on what factors were necessary in determining what would be required for a variance.
Well, it's wrong.
But to your point, right, just because staff makes a recommendation on those factors does not mean we have to agree with those.
You are the
Right.
determining
Right,
on those factors. The staff gives their own independent position, but you are the ones who make that decision.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is the factors that were considered are the ones that you are also independently required to consider.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. I had a question about the road widening, but I think you've answered that sufficiently. Of course, we don't have the city engineer putting it in writing here either, right? So, anyway, okay. I will entertain a motion for approving or disapproving variance request V 23-4.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the variance request based upon the factors that have been presented.
Okay, I have a motion,
I second it.
a motion to approve and a second. Ms. Gillall, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Essman?
Yes.
Mr. Rust?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Archibald?
No. But the variance is passed with a majority of the Board of Zoning Appeals voting in favor. Okay. Next case, we have V 23-5, Robert and Rebecca Rowley of 3660 Mockingbird Lane. Oh, we're going to invite Mr. Cloonan back from.
This is case number V 23-5 on an application filed by Robert and Rebecca Rowley, 3660 Mockingbird Lane, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45430, requesting a variance from Chapter 158-121A4 of the City of Beavercreek zoning code, requesting permission to construct a swimming pool in the front yard in an R1A district. The property is located on the northwest corner of Mockingbird Lane and Roselawn Drive, further described as Book 3, page 18, parcel 159 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Okay. All right, Mr. Funk, can you give us your final staff report on this case, please? For today.
For today. The final case for tonight is 3660 Mockingbird Lane, excuse me. Basically, this is the house. It's on the south end of town. Basically, we have a kind of a long, again, kind of not so deep lot. On this one happens to be on the corner. And, past it. Here's our drive-by. Technical difficulties. There we go. So this is the applicant's house here. And that's most of what you're going to see of the applicant's house.
30% view.
Yes. The applicant has a very well-screened house from the public roadway.
Natural screening.
Not even 30%. Oh, my God.
It's a very long lot.
Nature screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Funk, I hope you're in a marked City of Beavercreek car.
Yes.
'Cause otherwise, I'm sure the Beavercreek Police Department might be following you quite often.
Yeah.
It's like going into a park, you know?
Yep, I definitely draw attention sometimes. So this is the applicant's house, and where their proposed pool is going, where they're proposing their pool go. Basically, the code basically says that the swimming pool can't be in the front yard. And by definition, the front yard is from the house to the front property line. And since this is a corner lot, the applicant has two front yards, one from here down, and then one to Moccasin, and then from here over to Roselawn. So they have two front yards. In this situation, the applicant can't be in the front yard, so it can be in the rear, in the back of the house or to the side. And so this is the front view of the applicant's house. Basically, the only other viable, somewhat, really, by code, the applicant could even try to put it would be basically where to the left of the driveway there, which, given the size of the pool and the setbacks and stuff, is not, again, feasible. So basically, we reviewed the case, and basically, we felt like the applicant met the first criteria, basically because the house, as you can see, going back, this was constructed on the far west, kind of north corner of the lot. So it basically created a very unusually large front yard. Had the house been more to the east, that would have lent itself to, a better location for a pool and that kind of thing. So the orientation of the house on the lot basically is creating a practical difficulty to the applicant and basically adequately locating their pool. So we felt like they met the first criteria. The second criteria, is it the minimum variance possible? Are there other alternatives, things like that? The applicant could try to put the pool on the other side of but the pool basically would have been right up against the driveway, and with a side entry garage, it would have basically caused issues with trying to get in and out of the garage and things like that. Really wasn't, even though you could squeeze it in there, it really is not a feasible location for a pool. So the other thing is, well, I'll address it on the next, is it in harmony with the general spirit and intent of the code? We feel like with the location of the pool is to the rear of the applicant's house, but yet it's still to the rear of the house of the north. So it's not like it's in front of the house to the north it's not in their front yard, it's not in front of their house, it's still to the rear of their house. So, yes, it is in the front yard, but, it's behind the applicant, it's pretty much gonna be behind the applicant's house and behind the person to the north.
What is the required front yard?
The required front yard is 40 feet. So we have the required front yard, and then we have a front yard. So the code says that it can't be in the front yard,
I see.
so, at all, so regardless of
You
required
would
or not.
consider, I mean.
Front
you're
yard is
considering
from-
the front yard being, I don't know what street that is.
Mockingbird, this is Mockingbird.
Right.
So,
It's not in the front yard there, but it is in the front yard of, what is that, Rose?
Rose Lawn. So,
you
yeah,
think
it's in the
that's
front yard
of
on Rose Lawn. It's to
Even
the
though
s-
their house is facing on Mockingbird, you're saying that that's a front yard and not a side
By
yard?
definition, the front yard is the distance, is the area between the front property line and a house or the structure. So a corner lot basically has two front yards. So one's facing the front, on the front facade of the house, and then one to the side. They have two front yards, a corner lot by definition. So in this case,
I can understand having two required front yards, but for these purposes, using front yard as a front yard being the front of the house, I don't see where that necessarily applies here, but I'll defer to your judgment since you're the
I mean,
professional.
it's defined in our code,
Yeah,
so
right.
it's not really even my,
Yeah.
it's defined, the distances between the front property line and the structure is the front yard. So
Okay.
a corner lot has, by our definition in our code, a corner lot, a house.
Hope we
on a corner
fix
has
that
two
one
front
too in the
yards.
zoning code update.
So again, but in this case, we feel like the fact that the pool is going to be, to the rear, of the adjacent home, makes it even less impactful. And we feel like, it will be pretty much in harmony with the general intent and spirit of the code. We do not believe that would be injurious to surrounding properties or detrimental to public welfare. We don't believe it would create a deleterious change to the character of the community. You're not even going to see it because it's going to be hidden behind all the trees and vegetation. We don't feel like it's going to infringe upon the rights, inquiry, and enjoyment of the surrounding property owners or endanger public safety. We do believe it is for a compelling reason. Given the location of the house on the lot, we believe the applicant has a legitimate reason for seeking the variance. And lastly, we do not believe that it's solely for the economic benefit of the applicant. So we feel like the applicant meets all the criteria for a variance and recommend approval. And we recommend that you approve the variance request.
Very cool. Thanks, Mr. Funk. So, applicant, please come to the podium. Introduce yourself, read the card.
Okay, with my glasses on here. I, Rebecca Rowley, 3660 Mockingbird Lane, affirm that the testimony that I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. What
There
brings
it
you here?
is. I would have never known that I had two front yards. We had no, I mean, you even read the code and you're just like, okay, front yards. And then, then I sent it in and they were like, Melissa's like, I'm sorry, this is da-da-da-da-da, and call Matt. And I'm like, I'm calling who? What am I doing? And then, so.
Yeah, so the zoning code should be required reading for everybody before they buy a house.
Well, we built the house, so we built the house 27 years ago, and my mom lives on one side of me, so I hope she didn't send a letter that said, like, don't let her put. So for 52 years, there's been a pool, and this is, my father passed away 2 years ago. This is the first summer we've ever not had a pool. So we decided we were gonna take it on. She filled in her pool, and this is an above-ground, 18-foot, 54-inch deep. We need a pool. So, that was it, We just want a pool.
Okay.
And you saw that it's very screened. And I sent pictures, so I don't know if they got to see any of those pictures.
Is intentional, I just.
It's very intentional. We have possums and skunks and everybody else that is welcome to come live in my woods, so,
It kind of reminds, watching the trees with all the leaves reminds me of my cousin Vinny.
Oh, yeah.
And what are all these things on these trees? Oh, the leaves. Anyway, thank you very much. Anything else
No,
for the
that
good of
was
the
it.
order?
That
Okay.
was it.
Okay, great. I don't see anybody else in the audience, so I'm assuming that there's no other public input for this. Do we have any written input?
They all came to my driveway, is what they did. They all came and looked. People I don't even know.
It wasn't us.
No.
We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, we're not allowed to do more.
That can.
Because because GPS could be looking at, I don't want to go near to that. We used to, no more.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this variance request and open it up for discussion. Let's start with Mr. Rust.
I don't think I have any questions. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Mr. Clooney, welcome back.
I suppose just for the sake of asking a question to the applicant, the property to the north of yours, that back property line is screened as well with trees and all that?
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
I
they-
can't see her house from, any of my,
Okay. And have they voiced any disapproval of this potential pool?
no, because my neighbor's son plays a lot of really good music, so as long as we're all on the same page with listening to his music while I work from home, we're good.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
You're talking about the property that the house encroaches into the side yard setback.
Yes.
That's the one. Okay.
Yep, that's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Assman.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Butler.
I don't have any.
I only have one question, and that is, when's the pool party? And are we invited?
Sure.
Okay. Without any further ado, I'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove this variance request.
Motion to approve?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. Ms. Gillow, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rust,
Approve?
Mr. Butler,
Approve.
Mr. Clunin,
Approve?
Mr. Essman,
Approve?
Mr. Archibald.
Approved. Okay, that concludes our business for tonight. Anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Okay, otherwise I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move the motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second, and by voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.